the event must contribute to the long-term and short-term organizational goals. It has to flow from your why, and it has to make a positive impact for the organization. So has to meet your short-term and long-term goals, flow from your organization's why, and make a positive impact for the organization. Again, this is really basic. Successful events do this. This is when you're not doing random acts of marketing. This is everybody has this desire they want it to feel cohesive, right? They want it to feel like us, like me. And so, if we have this is what we're working towards. And so, a lot of times what you can do is start your event by asking these questions. What I'll do is I'm also going to send you all a PDF after this is done. I have it's a one page, here's something that you can work through in 25 to 30 minutes answering these questions. It's building that foundation. And then I've even seen organizations use it where they've started meetings with just a quick overview. Hey, this is why it's important. This is who it's for. This is what we want them to feel. So it's a really simple thing. Also, it's something that if you get team buy-in in advance on these organizational goals, you can say, hey, that's a great idea, but I do think it's kind of challenging the minimum viable product, or it's challenging the base of what we're trying to do. So ask the question, how does this event help us achieve our 1-year goals? So looking at, hey, where does my organization want to go? What are some of the focuses? With Pursue Scholars, you said you wanted them to feel more able to kind of, hey, like I'm the hero of my story. I can control my destiny, right? That's something that's something tangible. That's kind of a focus of your organization that can come out in your programming and in your events. And even kind of thinking outside, we can take these concepts and they apply even more broadly to really any engagement or marketing effort. Events is kind of that thing that we do, but you could apply this structure and process to a email campaign or something like that as well. So thinking that through. How does it contribute to my 3-year goals, right? So kind of that further out. So if you're, you all are planning an event in 2 years celebrating your 50-year anniversary, there's you can kind of picture what you want the school to be like, the organization to be like in 3 years. 1 year after we've done this event, what do we want to be true? What impact or dent could this event make? If this is successful, what could we actually do? And then kind of this idea of the 50-year or your wildly important goal. Sometimes people use the Jim Collins or the Built to Last language of your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal, or your WIG, your wildly important goal. What's the changed world look like? What does the world look like when I'm successful in what I've done, right? So, for Jacobson Events, when I think about it, I would love to see a bunch of organizations that were planning these stressful, pull out your hair events, plan events that actually work, that engage their target audience, help them achieve their goals. I would love to have hundreds or even thousands of event planners, accidental event planners, people who aren't formally trained, being able to point back and say, hey, like I did this. Because there's something really, really fulfilling when you get to plan an event that happens. And when someone's like, oh my gosh, like you played that song after that thing, like that was amazing. And you're like, yeah, that didn't happen by accident. Like we did that on purpose, and we did it because we had margin and made it all connect. So kind of this idea of what's the changed world? What does the changed world look like if I'm successful? And how does this event contribute to that? So asking these questions, this is like one of the best things that you can do for that intro opening meeting. What also you're going to have, as we're talking through some of this stuff, some of you have events that are coming up very, very soon, right? So essentially you're like, hey, this is all well and good, but like my event's on fire, right? Like I have to execute this thing. We're not going to sit and dream right now. You can almost think of yourself as kind of air traffic control. When someone comes on shift with air traffic control, they're going to be landing some planes that they did not send off, give permission to head towards O'Hare or anything like that. So in some cases, you might need to land a plane and it might be clunky. It might be lots of turbulence. It's, hey, like we're cleaning up the beverages, buckle your seatbelts, don't get up. It's going to be a bumpy ride into the thing. That's knowing that's where you're at. But the next plane you take off doesn't have to be as clunky, doesn't have to be as much turbulence. You can look at the weather where you're going and say, hey, this is, if we look in advance, this is what we could actually do and accomplish if we do this well with thought. A lot of organizations I've found, events are annual, right? Or you're doing 20, 30, 40 events, big and small, throughout the year. If every single plane you're sending up into the air or every single event that you plan has tons of friction, tons of turbulence, every single plane is just this like white knuckle it into the runway, like something needs to change, right? It doesn't have to be that way. There's lots of times where like it feels weird, actually. Like there's been times where I'm at an event and I'm like kind of useless right now. And it's like, that's actually the goal, like to be at that spot. And so, kind of this idea of your events have to contribute to your organization's why. Simon Sinek wrote a book called Start With Why. And in there, he talks about how organizations, a lot of organizations have the what, the how, and the why. So every organization on the planet knows what they do, right? We provide an education. We do this or we do that. We are going to engage this audience in a block party. That's the what. How is kind of what makes your organization unique. What's your secret sauce? What's your unique bend that you're working this towards? But organizations that know their why, it's that deep, visceral, we exist to. And a lot of times that's tied to a large goal, right? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, their why, their biggest thing was to eradicate polio, right? That was their BHAG, their wildly important goal. Your events, if the more they can flow from this, the better they're going to be. A lot of organizations, it flows from the what, rather than it being something where they say, "Hey, we can be more successful if we get $50,000. We're going to do a gala," right? That's kind of always like the let's do a gala. That's the and when you say that, it's this. There's so many connotations that come with that, and that's really kind of defined by this what. It's this we are doing a gala rather than we want to get people excited about our mission. We want to raise some money. We want to help them tell themselves a story. We want to do it in a compelling way that just like oozes my company's culture, right? That's what our goal is. If you're working out of your why rather than your what, it's so much more effective. Simon Sinek has a great TED Talk. It's 20 minutes long or 15 minutes long. It's went crazy viral. Check it out. It's a really great. He just has so many great examples of how when something flows from your why, how much more effective it is. Another resource that I found is really helpful is this idea. It's from a book called Good to Great. This Jim Collins did this really, really deep statistical deep dive into the top companies that were publicly traded, and he has lots and lots of stats that like it gets really rough when I'm listening to it on audio. But he has this idea as he looked at these successful organizations, successful companies. He said a lot of them have this hedgehog concept. It comes from this kind of old adage of a hedgehog knows one thing, a fox knows many things. And so there's this hedgehog that's kind of getting pursued by a fox. The fox is trying to eat the hedgehog, and the hedgehog just bundles up, sticks out its quills, and it protects himself. The fox can run and kick and bite and all these different things. Organizations that really have piercing clarity about where they're going, what they do, what they're best in the world at. What are you deeply passionate about? What are you best in the world at? What drives your economic engine? If you have those three things, that's kind of your hedgehog concept. It's that core offering. It's that core product. It's, if you're boiling down the mission, it's that, in some cases, almost kind of that one sentence that drives everything. We're right next to Lawndale Christian Health Center. Their mission is, it's loving God, loving people. Like that's their why, and they want to love people well. They're not defined by, they can do that in a lot of different ways. That's almost like that filter that it takes it through. So what are we deeply passionate about? What can we be best in the world at? And world doesn't mean world. World means your world, right? Like a lot of times we are really, really close to being able to make a huge impact. It's the people in your immediate sphere of influence. You don't need that many true fans or supporters. And then what drives our economic or resource engine? So kind of asking this question, hey, what do we do really well? What do we love doing? And what's effective in regards to impact, especially on the nonprofit side. For corporate, it comes down to profit. But what do we love doing? Where can we make a really, really big impact? Asking those questions as you're working through your event, it's that foundational level that you can kind of go back and be like, hey, are we passionate about this? Is this actually like what we love doing? Is this working? Because like we're going to spend $500 on a gala, and the people that we have in the room probably can only give $300. So is that a line? Is that what we're looking to do? So asking those questions at the beginning really, really helps. So everything needs to flow from your organization's why. Something that's really helpful is kind of asking this question: what organizational belief statements will drive or inform this activity or this event? There's organizations, a lot of them have these canned belief statements or core values and stuff like that. Some organizations use them. Some people have no idea. Sometimes there's just these driving principles. For Jacobson Events, I think one of the things that a belief or a kind of a core value is we want to take it a step beyond when we're offering value, when we're offering a service. We always want to take it a step beyond what's expected. In the sense of it's just not just doing that. We want to have lots of opportunities to kind of surprise and delight, and get people excited and feel that thing that drives some of the things that we do. So asking this question is really, really helpful. It helps build that foundation. We had talked about this. What are you best in the world at? What are your hedgehog concepts? Asking some of these questions. It's this process where in some cases you kind of just keep going back, and it's like if you had you get engaged, right? You have a ring, you have this thing, and you keep on looking at it from different facets. That's almost what we need to do for our organizations. Like look at it from underneath, from the side, you see different cuts and colors and different facets. Our organizations, we constantly can and should be doing that. What is the secret sauce? What is the thing that makes us unique? What are we best in the world at? So asking these questions and kind of having a regular basis is really helpful. I do a lot of coaching for individuals as well. This is a question that we are constantly looking at, is just when you look at yourself, like what's that thing? Like what makes you unique? What makes you show up differently than other people? So looking at yourself from different facets, looking at your organization from different facets really makes a big difference. And then we had talked about kind of this, what contributes to your short and long-term goals. These are kind of the base of really what we want everything to do and flow from. So love to open up for any questions. Yeah, that's a great point. Like, organizations don't always know where they're going, and this is an opportunity for event planners to lead up. A boss, a stakeholder, a board member would love when someone, well, in some cases, well, in theory, there's other aspects to it, but to ask those questions. If I was a leader of an organization and I had someone below me saying, "Hey, how does this contribute to where we want to go long term?" Those are great questions to ask, and it may even, in some cases, be, some of these could be the catalyst to start to change that conversation. I've actually walked through a few organizations where I started just providing logistics and execution, and now I'm meeting with the leader of the organization saying, "Hey, like, let's look at your strategic priorities. Like, let's look at your budget." So it started as help me execute this event, and it's turned into, what are our core values? What are our why? What are our belief statements that do this? So it's a slow process. But again, if the answer's I don't know, you can, in some cases, you could just kind of say, "Hey, this is what I see. Is this good? Like, would that be successful if we did do this?" I also see a lot of this stuff as it's a process, right? Like, in some cases, you don't even know. You can't just jump in and be like, "All right, let's define our 1, 3, and 5-year goals. Invite me to the executive offsite, and we'll hash them out." Like, that doesn't work that way. But I do think any movement in the direction of being more strategic, of being more precise, of really working through that stuff that's the step in a direction that we want to go, right? Like, that's if you do want to lose weight, or if you do want to do X, Y, or Z, running a mile is a great step, right? Or walking 15 minutes. No, it's not the marathon. No, it's not all these other things, but it's a step in that right direction. And the more you do it, the more, because what's going to happen is you're going to see logistics are actually going to work out. And they're gonna be like, "Oh, what was different?" And that also sets you up to be in that position to be of leadership. "Oh, Vilma was on this event and it went really well. That keeps on happening. Interesting, right? Events don't happen naturally well, right? Like, there's no, it is not a downhill. Successful events are not at the bottom of a hill, right? It's at the top of a hill, and you have a wheelbarrow with a square wheel, or no wheelbarrow.